Tell me about, I got a few other questions. What's going on with BRICS? What's going on with Brazil?
Yeah, so Brazil, this is one where very passionate for me. I'm someone who's close with the family of former President Bolsonaro, and particularly his son, Eduardo Bolsonaro. So what's happened in Brazil, and this is so unique and different from other areas of the world, you have a Supreme Court there, but don't think of like Justice Roberts and Sonia Sotomayor. Think of, in Brazil, the Supreme Court. They have their own investigative force. They have their own secret police. They can go and charge you themselves. The Supreme Court, not their version of a DOJ or a prosecutor, where the Supreme Court can charge you with a crime, try you with a crime, find you guilty of something, and then lock you up and throw away the key. And then, Dr. Drew, who do you appeal to? They're the Supreme Court. There's nowhere to go. So going back,
I've heard of other examples of this in history. We call it the Spanish Inquisition. Isn't it exactly the same?
Although I think probably the Spanish Inquisition was probably in many cases a little bit more fair, because they're doing some pretty dirty things in Brazil.
It was a very reasoned body. People don't know that. They were they tried to be very reasoned. They were not politically motivated. They had their own motivations. But anyway, yes.
So in 2021, I visited Brazil at the invitation of former President Bolsonaro and his son Eduardo, who is a federal deputy as well as CPAC in Brazil, and is now the exact same Supreme Court justice who is charging President Bolsonaro with something that would put him in prison for the next 35 years. And they've completely turned Brazil on its head. And so what President Trump is trying to do is say, look, if you're going to go run these undemocratic activities, whether it be some completely false nonsense they're going after President Bolsonaro on, or, by the way, this same judge, they kicked off True Social out of Brazil. Rumble is now banned out of Brazil. X, the former Twitter, that of course Elon Musk is now running, was kicked out of Brazil for a long time. And so I know people, Dr. Drew, that I've spoken with and met with, and people I've known for a long time that have been pulled out of their house in the middle of the night, who've been roughed up by these secret police, who've had their finances frozen, and there's no one to appeal to. All the while, and here's why it matters, and I'm going to land the plane here. Why this matters is because what the Supreme Court is doing in Brazil is making opposition to the current leader, President Lula, virtually impossible. They're trying to lock up anyone who they disagree with simply just because they're a different political perspective. So to combat that, Brazil's Congress is meeting tomorrow to pass an immunity law to make sure that members of Congress cannot be charged by the Supreme Court simply for doing their job. What they can then do is then go and take certain actions that right now they've been afraid to do, because it's been said from the Supreme Court, if you get out of line, if you say something that differs with their ideology, then they'll just come in, lock you up, and throw away the key. While this is happening, the reason why this is important is because now China and the CCP have massively grown their influence in Brazil. That affects America. That affects everything that we're doing in the Western Hemisphere. And so this Supreme Court Justice, Alexander de Moraes, the same one who detained me, the same one who's wanting to throw President Bolsonaro in prison for 35 years, is making it okay for the CCP to get a massive foothold in the Western Hemisphere. That's why it matters for Americans.